Hello, I'm Nick Earl. I am a climate scientist at the University of Tasmania, and today I'm going to answer your question: what's the difference between weather change and climate change? This is a brilliant question and one I'm teaching my students all about all the time. So, yes, it's one that's very interesting and one which I like to answer. So basically, weather change is day-to-day differences in the weather. Climate change is long-term averages, often sort of 30 years in length. That's what when we think about climate, that's what we think about around that 30-year mark, at least 10. So that's basically what the weather does for 10 to 30 years. That's what we call climate. So weather changes a lot from day to day. For example, yesterday in Hobart, the maximum temperature was 11 degrees, whereas last week we had a maximum of 24. So basically, just in about 5 days, the maximum temperature changed by 13 degrees. That's crazy. And whereas we think about climate and we're worried about the planet warming up by 2 degrees, and you think, well, it changes 13 degrees in 5 days. Why does it matter if the temperature changes on average by 2 degrees over a very long period of time? And it does, because average temperatures are what affect ecosystems and affect humans in general, because the extreme temperatures, if you're going to get 38 degrees like before climate change, but now it's going to go to 40, that can make things happen which wouldn't have happened before and can be very bad. Also, the warmer it is, the more evaporation we get on average, which dries out the landscape, which means that some places which would never have bushfires are now experiencing bushfires. So that's why the long-term temperature really matters. But because of your interesting question, I've done a bit of analysis. So I was just looking at the temperature of Hobart. This is the maximum temperature in Hobart. And as you can see, this is the daily maximum for 10 years. So you see how big the range is, basically. You see it's very hard to distinguish, but you can see the seasons. So the colder maximum temperatures are at the lower end, so down into like 5 or 6 or 7 degrees. And then the warm ones, sometimes we go over 40. So it looks like early January 2013, right on the top left there, we went way over 40, around 42. And we got to over 40 a couple of times in 2019. However, last year in 2022, we didn't even get over 35. So basically, this shows how much the temperature ranges from day to day. Now, when you put a 7-day cycle moving average through there, we can actually then see that when you average a 7-day period, then you get a lot less range. However, you can clearly see the seasons, and yeah, it still ranges quite a bit. However, when we go monthly, so this is a 31-day moving average, you can see very clearly the seasons, and you can see that sometimes we have a month, which is so 31-day moving average temperature went up to 26 around in 2019. So basically, the longer time period you're looking at, the smoother the line. Let's go even further. Let's see the average 365 moving average that's a year long. And as you can see, here it is. That's the climate. That's the difference between weather and climate. The weather is very noisy, as we say, lots of range, whereas the climate is that average here's just an average for a year over the 10 years. We probably wouldn't even say that's climate, but you can see how smooth that annual mean is compared to the daily, the weekly, the monthly. We can go a bit further. This is the Hobart daily maximum temperature from 1950 to 2022. And here you can start seeing the climate change signal. So what you notice is that in the early 1950s and in the 60s, we'd often get to 5 degrees. Almost, that's the maximum temperature in Hobart. However, recently, in the last 10 years, we very rarely get that low. And you can see this in the maximums as well. So we actually get more over 35-degree days, like more than we used to, basically, as you can see in this top bit here. Now, what about the average? This is a line of best fit, and we can see that the average maximum temperature in Hobart in the 1950s was around 16 degrees, and now we're almost up to 18 degrees. So that's the difference between weather and climate. The weather is very noisy, and but the climate changes slowly. However, that climate change does then impact that day-to-day weather when it comes to the hotter extremes and increases in evaporation, which dry out the landscape and make us more susceptible to bushfires. Thanks for the great question, and I hope you enjoyed the answer. See you later.